During a cold, rainy night shift at the hospital, a black nurse discovers a dying Marine with no ID. Despite being ordered not to intervene, she risks everything to save him. What she didn't know, the man she saved is the president's son. Her act of courage costs her the job. But 24 hours later, an invitation from the White House arrives, and her life is about to change forever. Before we dive in the story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thought. The air in the ER at Southside General Hospital was too still for a Friday night in Atlanta. Outside, the city was drenched. Rain lashed against the tall windows like impatient fingers. Inside, the harsh fluorescent lights made everyone look a little more tired, a little more pale. Machines beeped in rhythm. The front desk smelled like coffee that had been reheated one too many times. In the background, a janitor slowly pushed his mob past the vending machine, humming low, off-key. Nurses moved through the hallway, some charting, some chatting in murmurs. The place was quiet, but not calm. It was the kind of silence that made people glance over their shoulders. Maya Thompson stood behind the triage counter, sipping stale coffee from a chipped mug that said, "Nurses call the shots." Her dark brown scrubs hugged her frame after a long shift. Her skin was a rich, deep brown, her features sharp but composed, and her thick black hair was pulled back into a low braid that was beginning to loosen. She had been on her feet since early evening, and her knees ached, but her mind was sharper than ever. She wasn't someone who got careless. At 27, Maya had seen too much to be shaken easily. Broken bones, overdoses, street violence, scared teenagers, grieving mothers. But tonight felt strange, too quiet, no yelling, no new admits for almost 40 minutes. She glanced up at the clock, 12:23 a.m., and exhaled slow and measured. Across from her, a younger nurse named Chloe tapped on a keyboard, eyes red-rimmed from fatigue. An older tech named Jorge was adjusting 4 racks with practiced robotic hands. Behind them, Dr. Ramirez leaned against a wall, flipping through a clipboard, sipping a protein shake like it was water. Everyone looked like they were waiting for something to happen, but hoping it wouldn't. And then it did. The double doors at the end of the ER burst open with a deafening crash that made everyone flinch. Rain slammed in with the wind. 2 paramedics stormed through, soaked from head to toe, their gloved hands gripping the rails of a gurney that flew past the nurse's station. "Code red incoming," one of them shouted. "Male, mid-20s. No ID found near the shipping docks. Chest trauma. Shrapnel suspected. BP's crashing, no phone, no tags, no comms." People froze. Nurses looked to each other. Doctors exchanged glances. Maya was already moving. The man on the gurney was a mess of blood, mud, and ripped fabric. His face was swollen, a gash splitting his cheekbone. His shirt was almost shredded. One combat boot hung loose, the other missing entirely. But what made Maya's breath catch wasn't the blood. It was the dull glint of metal on his chest. A dog tag caked in grime. She reached out and turned it over gently with 2 fingers. "Sea Stone," she read quietly. "United States Marine Corps." Behind her, Supervisor Sterling's voice rang out low and sharp. "Do not touch him." Maya turned. Sterling was already walking in, clipboard in hand, his usual frown deeper than usual. He was in his early 50s, always crisp, always watching, the type who loved policy more than people. "He's military," he said flatly. "No ID, no orders, no clearance. We don't have jurisdiction. Don't lay another hand on him until we're authorized. He's dying," Maya said louder than she intended. Her voice echoed just enough to draw more eyes. Jorge stopped mid-step. Chloe blinked. Dr. Ramirez looked up. Sterling didn't flinch. "If he's federal, touching him without clearance is a breach. You know that. I also know he'll be dead in minutes if we stand here quoting policy. You're not cleared to make that call, Nurse Thompson." Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the rage climbing her throat, but she kept her tone even. "What do you want me to do? Watch him die? Because we're scared of paperwork." "Stand down," Sterling said again, his voice harder now. I'll call command until they respond. You wait. The man on the gurney let out a soft groan, barely audible. The monitor beeped, then dipped. BP 70 and falling. Pulse ox 81 and dropping. Maya stared at the Marine. His chest barely rose. Blood soaked the stretcher beneath him. Then she made her choice. She turned back to the team. Plasma O2 suture kit now. For a split second, nobody moved. Then Chloe grabbed a tray and followed. Dr. Ramirez hesitated, then joined them. Jorge rushed to open trauma room 2. You're making a mistake, Sterling called out, but it was distant now. Maya didn't respond. She followed the gurney into the trauma room, her gloves already on, her mind narrowing to one goal: keep him alive. The doors shut behind her. The rest of the hospital went silent. The rain had stopped, but the gray morning sky still pressed down on Atlanta like a held breath. Inside Southside General, the halls smelled of old coffee and disinfectant. Nurses moved quietly, eyes low, steps careful. It was the shift change lull, the moment between exhaustion and urgency, where the silence said more than anyone wanted to admit. Maya sat alone on the bench outside the admin wing, her scrubs wrinkled, her badge limp against her chest. She held a paper cup of vending machine coffee, but hadn't taken a sip. Her fingers wrapped around it just to feel the warmth. Her mind hadn't stopped running since the trauma room door slammed shut 4 hours ago. She had saved his life. She knew that she had done what they all were supposed to do, but the looks she'd gotten since, the whispers, the averted eyes, the tension every time she walked past another nurse station told her something was coming and not something good. The intercom clicked. Nurse Thompson, please report to the administrator's office. The voice was flat, rehearsed. Not a request, not a conversation, just a summons. Maya stood slowly, knees stiff from sitting too long. She smoothed the front of her scrub top with one hand, then walked down the corridor as she passed the ER nurse's station. Chloe looked up briefly, then looked away. Jorge was restocking for trays, pretending not to see her. Even Dr. Ramirez, who had stepped in with her that night, offered only a quiet nod without eye contact. The hallway leading to administration was quieter than the rest of the hospital. Walls were lined with framed awards, donor plaques, mission statements in fancy fonts. It felt disconnected from the lives behind the trauma bay doors, like it belonged to a different kind of building, a cleaner one, a safer one, one that the office door was open when she arrived. Inside sat Eleanor Vance, chief administrator, wearing a burgundy blazer over a white blouse, hair pinned neatly, expression unreadable. Across from her was Mark Jenkins, the hospital's legal counsel. Gray suit, thin glasses, a man who rarely looked up from whatever document he was holding. Come in, Eleanor said. Her tone was cool, professional, no smile. Close the door, please. Maya stepped inside, closed the door behind her and stood still. Eleanor gestured to the chair. Have a seat. She sat, her heartbeat steady, but hard. Not panic, just a rising wall inside her chest pressing in. You know why you're here? Eleanor began. I assume, Maya said, keeping her voice even. It's about last night. Eleanor nodded. She folded her hands over a folder on her desk. Nurse Thompson, what you did in Trauma 2 was in some ways admirable. You saved a patient's life. No one's disputing that. Jenkins adjusted his glasses but didn't speak. Eleanor continued, but in doing so, you violated federal policy. You intervened in a classified situation without proper clearance. You acted against direct instruction from your supervisor. Maya blinked once. I acted because no one else would. I had a dying man on my table, and I did what I'm trained to do. We're not questioning your intention, Jenkins said finally, his voice soft but cold. We're outlining the legal exposure you created for this institution. Maya's jaw tensed. Exposure, she repeated almost a whisper. Is that what we're calling it now? Maya, Eleanor said, voice slightly firmer. You're an excellent nurse. No one here questions your skill. But we operate in a system, and when the system is bypassed, we all suffer the consequences. Except the patient, Maya replied. He lived. That doesn't change the liability, Jenkins said. Maya looked at Eleanor. So what is this? A warning? A formal write-up? Eleanor's eyes flicked to Jenkins, then back to Maya. No, she said. It's termination. Effective immediately. The room went still. For a long moment Maya didn't move. The only sound was the low ticking of the wall clock behind Eleanor's head. Tick, tick, tick. You're firing me, Maya said, voice flat. We're ending your employment due to insubordination and policy violation, Eleanor clarified. Maya leaned back slowly. After 5 years, after everything I've done for this hospital, Eleanor's voice stayed professional. We understand this is difficult, and we're prepared to offer a severance package and a positive reference as long as there's no challenge to the terms. You think I care about a reference? Maya asked quietly. You think that's why I went into that trauma room? Eleanor didn't answer. Jenkins was already pulling papers from a file. I saved a man's life, Maya said again. Not because it was easy, not because it was safe, because it was right, and because everyone else in that room looked away. She stood slowly. The chair creaked as she pushed it back. Her hands were clenched now, not shaking, just tight. You'll get my badge and keys by the end of the day, she said. Eleanor nodded. Thank you, Nurse Thompson. Maya didn't say anything more. She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, the silence following her like a shadow. Back at the locker room, she opened her cubby with numb fingers. Her name tag, Maya Thompson RN, sat on the shelf, mocking her. Now, she removed her stethoscope, a pen light, and a folded photo of her mother from the top corner. Around her, no one spoke. 2 nurses were changing into their day scrubs, avoiding her eyes. One muttered something under her breath, but Maya didn't ask. She zipped her bag, tucked the badge into her front pocket, and walked out of the hospital without looking back. The automatic doors hissed open. The outside air was damp and still. The sun had started to rise behind thick clouds, casting a muted yellow glow across the wet parking lot. She stood for a moment on the curb, arms crossed over her chest, her breath visible in the cool air. A few cars passed by. A man walked his dog across the street. The city was waking up. But for Maya, the world felt quiet in a different way. All I did was save a life, she thought. That's it. Then she turned, lifted her chin, and walked away. The apartment was small but warm, nestled in a weathered brick building off Monroe Avenue in southeast Atlanta. The wallpaper peeled in a few corners, and the floor creaked under certain tiles, but Maya had made it hers. Family photos lined the hallway wall, her mother in her nurse's uniform, her brother in high school graduation robes, her father in military dress blues from a life before illness. A quiet pride lived in every frame. But today the place was silent. The only sound came from the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the kitchen cloth. Maya sat at the table in an oversized sweatshirt and flannel pants, hair pulled into a loose bun. Her phone was face down beside an untouched bowl of cereal. Her eyes were puffy from lack of sleep. She hadn't turned on the television. She hadn't called anyone. She had spent the morning sitting in the same spot, staring out the window, watching the rain dry on the sidewalk. In her hand, she held a small piece of cold metal, the dog tag. She hadn't meant to take it. In the chaos after surgery, after they moved the Marine into recovery, it had come off in her glove. Somehow, it ended up in her scrub pocket, and when she was escorted out that morning, she didn't think to return it. Now she couldn't stop looking at it. The name was simple, the letters barely visible under the grime. C. Stone. The edges were smooth but worn. It weighed more than it should have, as if it carried the weight of what had happened, what she had done, what they had done to her. A knock broke the stillness. It was sharp. Not the kind of knock that came from neighbors or delivery drivers. Not a friendly tap. It was direct, timed, and practiced. Maya stood slowly, heart thumping. She crossed the room, peeked through the peephole, and froze. There were 3 men outside. All wore dark suits, black ties, and earpieces. The man in the center stood with perfect posture, his hands clasped in front of him. His expression didn't shift, not even when she shifted behind the door. Maya hesitated, then unlocked the chain and opened the door 2 inches. Miss Maya Thompson? The man asked. His voice was even controlled. She nodded slowly. Yes. I'm Agent Davies, United States Secret Service. May we come in? Maya's stomach dropped. Secret Service? Her voice cracked slightly. What's going on? I'm not at liberty to discuss details here, ma'am. But you've been formally requested at the White House. The president would like to speak with you. Maya blinked, speechless. She looked down at herself. Sweatshirt stained with coffee, socks mismatched. This has to be a mistake. It's not, Davies replied, unmoving. We're prepared to escort you now. You'll have time to change in the vehicle if you need. A silence stretched between them. The words didn't make sense. Less than 24 hours ago, she was being told to turn in her badge. Now, she was being summoned by the most powerful man in the country. Nothing about this felt real. I need a minute, she said. Davies gave a slight nod. We'll wait. Maya closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, breathing hard. Her hands shook slightly as she moved to her bedroom. She pulled on a pair of dark jeans and a clean button-up blouse, tied her hair back into a tighter bun, then grabbed her small purse. Before she left, she glanced once more at the dog tag still on the kitchen table. She hesitated, then picked it up, slipped it into her pocket, and exhaled. When she stepped outside, the entire block had changed. A line of black SUVs stretched down the street. Neighbors peeked through blinds. A man walked his dog across the street. A little girl on the stoop across the street waved wide-eyed. The moment Maya stepped through the building's front gate, the agents moved into formation, one opening the car door for her, the other scanning the street. Inside the SUV, the interior was silent and spotless. The seats were firm leather, the windows darkened to near pitch black. A bottle of water sat unopened in the cup holder. The vehicle pulled away without a word, blending into the procession as the convoy rolled smoothly through the city. Maya sat stiffly, arms crossed. She stared at the back of Agent Davies's head in the front seat. Can you tell me why? She asked finally. Davies didn't turn. You'll be briefed on arrival. She leaned back. Am I in trouble? No, ma'am, he said. You're not under investigation. That answer should have calmed her. Didn't. As they left the residential blocks and entered the downtown corridor, Maya's heart refused to slow. The Marine's name echoed in her head. Caleb Stone. He was alive. She knew that much. But who was he? Why had this reached the White House? They moved onto the freeway, traffic parting easily as the convoy passed. From above, a military helicopter buzzed in the sky. It all felt too much, too orchestrated. 30 minutes passed. Then the Capitol appeared. The White House was just as it looked in the textbooks, massive, elegant, intimidating. But standing before it in real time, it felt different, alive, weighted with something bigger than pride. Maya's palms were sweating by the time the SUV rolled to a stop at the northwest entrance. The door opened. A staffer in a navy blue suit stood waiting, clipboard in hand. Miss Thompson, this way, please. Maya stepped out, legs slightly shaky. She followed the staffer through security checkpoints, past marble halls lined with portraits, past aides and guards who moved with purpose. No one told her what to expect. No one explained. They stopped in front of a set of large double doors. The aide turned to her. He's waiting for you inside. Then he opened the doors and stepped aside. Maya took one breath and walked in. The room was brighter than she expected. Sunlight poured in through tall, arched windows, casting golden patches on the marble floor. The walls were lined with shelves holding thick books with gold lettering, flags draped behind the desk, and two large oil paintings hung on either side, both former presidents. And there, near the resolute desk, stood the man she had seen on television countless times. The President of the United States turned as the doors closed behind her. Maya Thompson, he said, his voice low but steady. Thank you for coming. Maya stood frozen just inside the doorway, unsure whether to salute, nod, speak, or even breathe. She started, then caught herself. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. He offered a faint smile and gestured to the seat across from him. Please. She walked forward slowly, her heart pounding so loud it filled her ears. She sat carefully, her hands folded tight in her lap. The chair felt too soft, too formal. She kept her back straight and her chin up, but inside everything swirled. Confusion, fear, awe. The president didn't sit. He walked slowly behind the desk, then stopped and turned toward her. His expression was somber, not political, not polished, just personal. You saved my son's life, he said. Maya blinked. Her voice caught. I didn't know. I know you didn't, he said, nodding. You had no idea who he was. That's what makes what you did more remarkable. You didn't save a Marine because he was my son. You saved a dying young man because it was the right thing to do. Because others hesitated and you didn't. She lowered her eyes, the weight of his words settling heavy on her shoulders. I didn't act for credit, she said quietly. I acted because no one else would. He stepped closer, resting both hands on the edge of the desk. We reviewed the footage, heard from the team, watched how you took command when the room froze. They told me how you kept him alive, how you pulled him back when the monitors went flat. He paused. You went against policy. You broke the chain of command. You risked your job. But in that moment, you did what even experienced doctors didn't. You saw past the rules, past the fear, and made a human decision. And for that, my family will always be in your debt. Maya looked up, her throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak. The door behind her opened again, and soft footsteps approached. She turned to see the First Lady enter, elegant, poised, wearing a tailored navy dress. But her eyes were glassy, rimmed with emotion. Without hesitation, she crossed the room and pulled Maya into a gentle hug. You didn't just save a Marine, she whispered, voice breaking. You gave us back our child. Maya froze, then slowly returned the embrace. She felt the tremble in the woman's hands, the raw human grief that had lingered in the hours before they knew their son would live. When the First Lady stepped back, her voice steadied. We had prepared ourselves for the worst. His unit was ambushed. Communications were lost. And then we were told someone had found him. A nurse, an off-duty nurse who wouldn't give up. That was you. Maya tried to speak, but nothing came. The president walked toward her, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. And now we'd like to do more than just say thank you. Another door opened. Staff members entered quietly, followed by a photographer and 2 members of the press, cameras in hand, but respectful in distance. A military aide stepped in last, holding a small, polished velvet box. Maya straightened instinctively, unsure what to do. Podium was rolled forward. The president stood behind it, clearing his throat as an aide unfurled a document with the presidential seal beside him. For acts of extraordinary bravery, he began. For placing humanity above protocol. For saving a United States Marine under conditions where seconds mattered, and hesitation could have been fatal. It is my distinct honor to award the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Nurse Maya Thompson. Gasps echoed through the room. Flashbulbs flickered. Maya froze, her hands clenched against her legs. She looked at the First Lady, who nodded gently. You deserve this. The military aide stepped forward. The president opened the box and lifted the medal, its blue ribbon catching the light, the golden star radiant against the velvet. Please rise, he said. Maya stood slowly, her knees trembling. He stepped toward her and placed the medal around her neck. The weight of it settled just below her collarbone. It was heavier than it looked. The room broke into applause. The president leaned close. This isn't just a medal, he said. It's the country saying, we see you. She managed to smile, one that came with tears. Not tears of shame, not exhaustion, but release. When the applause settled, he lifted his hand again. One more thing, he said, voice full but calm. This administration believes in investing in those who lead with heart. As of today, Nurse Maya Thompson has been appointed head nurse of the White House Medical Unit. The cameras erupted again. Reporters leaned forward. Staff whispered. Maya's mouth opened slightly. I'm not even employed right now. You are now, he said with a grin. The First Lady stepped beside her. You'll have housing nearby, full salary, your choice of staff, and every resource you need to do what you do best. Maya blinked. I don't even know what to say. Then don't, the First Lady said gently. Just take it in. You earned every part of this. Maya touched the metal lightly. It was still warm from his hand. She looked around the room. She thought of that cold air, the gurney soaked in blood, the silence when no one would move. She thought of the dog tag in her pocket, the decision she made not knowing who he was. And now she stood under the seal of the president, no longer dismissed, no longer invisible, not just seen, respected, and maybe finally at peace. Weeks had passed since that day in the White House. The headlines had faded. The cameras moved on. But for Maya Thompson, life had not returned to normal. It had shifted into something entirely new. The White House medical unit was nothing like the ER at Southside General. The walls were quieter, the protocol stricter, the patients more polished, senators with migraines, foreign diplomats with stomach bugs, security staff with pulled muscles after training drills. Everything was pristine, controlled, and yet in many ways more distant than the chaos she had come from. Still, she adjusted. Her badge now read Maya Thompson, RN, Director of Medical Services. Her name was stitched into her new uniform in white thread below the White House seal. Her office sat just 2 doors down from the Vice President's suite. The first time she walked into it alone, she stood still for nearly a full minute. The door closed behind her, just breathing. Smelled like fresh paint and new leather. The desk gleamed. On the shelf behind her, they had already framed a photo from the medal ceremony. But her eyes were drawn to what sat on the corner of the desk. See stone dog tag. She hadn't let it go. She had offered it back once. Caleb Stone, the young Marine she saved, had smiled at her gently and said, "Keep it. It reminds me we both made it." She never argued again. One afternoon, as she was organizing a training protocol for medical response teams, there was a soft knock on her open door. She looked up and there he was. Caleb stood tall, fully recovered in his formal dress blues. He looked healthier than the day he whispered, "Thank you," but his eyes still held the same depth. He stepped inside slowly, his movement no longer stiff, though there was still a faint limp in his left leg. "Permission to enter?" he asked, grinning. Maya stood from her desk. "You never need to ask." He walked in, glanced around the room, took it in. "So, this is what saving someone gets you?" She raised an eyebrow. "It wasn't about that," he nodded. "I know. That's why it matters." He reached into his pocket and held out something wrapped in cloth. She took it gently and unwrapped it to reveal a medal. Not hers, his. "The Navy gave me this," he said. "Medal for heroism not involving actual conflict. But truth is, I wouldn't be around to accept it if not for you. So unofficial or not, it's yours." Maya looked at it, then at him. Her voice was quiet. "You breathing is all the thanks I need." He smiled. "Still, I wanted you to have it." They sat for a moment in comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't demand conversation. Later that evening, after her shift, Maya found herself driving without thinking. The sun was setting, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples. Her hands turned the wheel almost on their own. When she looked up, she was parked across the street from Southside General. The hospital looked the same. Crowded, rushed, raw. She didn't know why she came. Maybe to remember, maybe to let go. She zipped her hoodie up, pulled a hood low over her head, and crossed the street quietly. Inside, the ER hadn't changed. The same antiseptic smell, the same overworked staff, the same flickering light above triage desk number 2. She moved slowly, blending in. A young nurse, maybe 22, fumbled within 4 while a father panicked beside her, his child crying on the stretcher. The girl's hands were shaking, her voice trembling as she tried to reassure him. No one noticed. Everyone else was too busy. Maya moved forward, leaned in gently. "Slow down," she whispered. "Breathe. Lift the port first, not the line." The nurse looked up, startled. Maya gave her a small, steady nod. The nurse blinked, then did as instructed. It worked. The father exhaled. The child calmed. Maya stepped back quietly before anyone could ask her name. She walked out through the same doors she once pushed open every morning at 7 a.m. She didn't look back. The next day, Maya met with her lawyer and financial advisor. She created a fund not under her name. No public press, no media splash. It was just a quiet scholarship built for young nursing students from underrepresented communities. Those who had the heart but not the money. Those who needed someone to believe in them. She read every application herself. She wrote the letters of acceptance by hand. One of them ended with the words, "Don't wait for permission. Do what you were born to do." Months later, the White House hosted a new initiative, one designed to mentor the next generation of trauma nurses and medics. Maya helped build it. She helped recruit, design the curriculum, even selected the first cohort of candidates. On the morning of the launch ceremony, she stood off stage with a clipboard, watching rows of young people in pressed uniforms take their seats under the canopy set up on the south lawn. Some clutched notebooks. Others looked around in awe. All of them reminded her of herself before the night, before the gurney, before the choice. The crowd stirred. Caleb Stone approached the podium in full dress. When he raised his hand in salute, Maya blinked. He wasn't saluting the flag. He was saluting her. "I asked to speak today," he began, "because I owe everything I am right now to a woman who broke the rules, who stood alone, who acted while everyone else waited. She didn't do it for recognition. She didn't know who I was. And when the system punished her, she didn't back down. She rode." He paused, eyes scanning the crowd. "If you're lucky enough to learn under her, you're learning from someone who chose courage over comfort. That's the kind of leader I'd follow anywhere." The crowd rose in ovation. Reporters captured every word. But Maya didn't step up for attention. When the ceremony ended, she returned to her clinic, hung her coat, and sat at her desk. The dog tag still sat in the corner untouched. She looked at it for a long time, then smiled. She had come full circle. Not because she asked for it, not because anyone handed it to her, but because she held on to the one thing that never changed, who she was. And now the world finally saw it, too. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.